to another edition of the Morning Cup.
It's obvious he hasn't had enough.
I'm trying to compensate today, hoping that by wearing this, I may actually feel human. It's not working out. Yeah, I'm working on it. I know, man. Yeah, I forgot to set the alarm last night.
Okay.
But I still woke up at the right time.
I was wondering. I thought maybe I just slept through it.
Well, that wouldn't be the first time. But, yeah, I just, my eyes popped open and I was like, oh crap, did I set the alarm last night? And I look over, no, I did not. Oh, it's time to wake up. So, I guess that works out. I don't even know.
Hey, at least you didn't sleep in until 7. Which you normally do on the weekends.
Sometimes, yeah. It depends.
So, yeah.
Oh, Debbie says, good Monday morning, good morning.
Good morning.
And Renee says, good morning.
Good morning.
Renee.
No.
And Scott says, good Monday morning. And
Good
Gina
morning.
says, good morning. And
Good morning.
Marie says, good morning, Paige America.
Good morning.
Good to see all you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for liking, commenting, and sharing.
And
I can't do it.
And I like your title for today.
Oh.
You didn't even try to mess me up.
No, I didn't. I wasn't feeling it, man. I was not feeling it today.
And today's title is Morning Cup of Murky Monday. Yeah, it's really freaking humid here.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that too.
Oh.
I was just going with murky. Murky means
okay.
dark. I guess you could go with, I don't know,
Yeah.
moody, moist.
You know, there are a lot of people who do not like that word.
I know. But that's not where I was going. My mind went sideways already, so.
Your mind is always sideways.
Well, this is true.
So it just flipped upside down.
Oh, so you're saying I'm upside down?
Oh, no.
I'm always in the upside down. Little Stranger Things reference there.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, but if it's murky, moist, and,
It's all, yeah.
And I wish it would just do something already. Like, I don't know, rain. If you're going to be this wet, at least put out. I'm just saying. Warning, this show is for entertainment purposes only.
And not necessarily kid-friendly.
No, yeah. I don't even know what you're talking about, man. Little innuendo never killed anybody. Maybe.
Oh, goodness, no.
Steven says, good morning from the Blacks. Good morning.
morning.
Good to see you. Kelly says, good morning, my friends. Hello, my little friend.
Good morning.
And Marie says, I just got back from Ohio. Believe me, this is not human.
No.
It is for us.
It is. It's all relative.
Yes. Because it's humidity. It's all relative.
Oh, goodness.
No, it's a science.
It's
dad joke thing.
It is.
Silence. Just saying, man. What?
Yeah, I know it's not as humid as other places, but ugh.
When you're used to 5% humidity and it jumps up to 25, 30, it's freaking humid.
Pretty much.
When it's 90% humidity all the time, well, that's your problem. Move. Oh, Renee's dying over here. Gina says, hey, PG-13. It was PG. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're the one that took that to a dark place. I don't know.
Really? There was no taking. You just shoved that out there.
I did, but it was not a direct thing. I'm just saying. Kelly says, good morning, beautiful people.
Good morning.
The beautiful people. The beautiful people.
Oh, good Lord.
Ow, I shook my head too much. Oh. You know you're old when you can't even headbang on your own stuff. Or like,
That was amazing.
I don't know, man. This humidity is just.
It is.
It's not nice.
No, it's not. But going back to Mare's thing where she just got back from Ohio.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember when my dad lived in Baltimore. Oh my!
I lived in
goodness.
DC, so yeah, I know.
Nope. Ew.
Yeah, it's a whole
gross.
different ball of wax. But like I said, when you're used to the 5% humidity and it jumps up to 30, it's a huge jump.
It is.
Over there, you need scuba tanks to live. So
yeah.
or gills. I don't even know. David says, goodbye, my little friend Barry. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry, David. Goodbye. Excuse me. Let me get over. Marie says, I was thrilled to get back to Arizona.
Yes.
I can imagine so. I can imagine so. Renee says, He shoved it out there? Really? See, it wasn't just me, okay?
Mine was more innocent. I hadn't even...
I don't know what you're talking about. Pete says, good morning, y'all. Good morning. Good to see you. Is that one of those little faces?
Yes, it is.
Good to see you. Carrie over on YouTube says, Taz woke me up in time for the morning cup.
Hopefully by not knocking you over.
Yeah, well, no, but she's still got dog butt on the forehead.
That is true.
So,
that is true.
Either way.
Actually, she's never said it was the forehead. She said it was her face.
Yeah, but I was trying to go with the safe zone. I just... Is it... Ooh. I got a visual, man. And Carrie says, good morning. Good morning, Carrie. Good to see ya. Happy Murphy Monday.
Yes.
Gina says, I'm headed to Texas Friday. And I'm not looking forward to the humidity. I used to live in Georgia and Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, I've lived in Texas myself many years. Hated it. Nope. Don't like it.
And I went down to Florida once right before the summer hit. And the only thing I can say about the humidity, actual really heavy humidity, is it's really good for the skin.
Is it? I don't know.
It is.
I disagree.
Excuse me. At least mine. My skin just loved it when I was down there.
That's your problem, I guess.
But yeah.
When you go on vacation down there, you don't know. I visited Florida several times. I did not like it.
It was
either.
only once that I visited.
The worst part for us, we went on a C-130 flight down to Tampa Bay. We went to it was some kind of roller coaster park. I'll be damned if I can remember what it is, but you know, we landed and you step out of that thing and it's just like.
Yeah, I remember doing that when we visited my dad. It was just ew.
Mm-hmm. And Texas was the same thing. You get off the airplane, you know, and you walk into Texas, man. As soon as you walk out of that, it's like walking into a hot wall of water. I'm just having that flashback.
See, now I was stationed in El Paso, and it wasn't as humid as the northern part of Texas,
or the eastern part, because that's where the ocean is.
Yeah.
Nope.
So I was, you know, I was relatively happy because it was like Arizona.
Oh God. Carrie says, "Yep," and shut your mouth with the Murphy stuff. I'm ordered to keep feet up until
doctor's appointment.
Oh no. Get better, darn it.
No kidding.
I don't even know, man. I don't even know. Gina says, yes, it is good for the skin, but not for breathing.
Exactly.
Although, you know, I don't know if it's still the case, but I know back in the day, like, if you had breathing ailments or whatever, apparently hot, moist air is in the salt and stuff is good for you when you...
It depends on the breathing problem, because
I think that causes a whole other kind of breathing problem.
I know a lot of people are told to move to arid areas.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard that.
For their breathing issues, because the lungs need to dry out.
Your lungs need to dry out. Like, your lungs are already filled with fluid. Move to the desert and it'll suck it right out.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Let's see. Carrie says it was Busch Gardens. Yeah, that was probably it. Yeah. I enjoyed the roller coasters. I did not enjoy Tampa. Renee says, she's talking to Carrie over on YouTube there. Let's see. Marie says, well, when you can take your clothes out of the washer and put them on because it is a waste of time to put it in the dryer, that is good. Yes,
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, with Arizona, you take them out of the washer and put them on, and as you walk out the door, you're dry. So it just
unless it's monsoon season.
Unless it's monsoon season, yeah. And then it's like almost, but Gina's saying so true. Renee says, been there, had that, and all. Oh, yeah, everything does smell musty.
It does.
And everything smells moldy, including the people. Just saying, when you're that wet all the time, it's just moldy, man. It's not healthy.
And this is, you know, I've come to the conclusion, this is why people in the South move so slow.
Oh, yeah, because of the humidity.
Yeah, they're having to cut through it.
They gotta swim.
Yeah, pretty much.
They gotta swim.
And that level of humidity with the heat, it just... It takes all the energy out of you.
It does.
So you end up moving like Yertle the turtle.
Well, just a couple of days ago, it wasn't yesterday, I think it was Saturday, it was 109 degrees under the LPNN shade tree. 109, man.
And that was not getting, and I double checked because you said go check, and that was not getting direct sunlight.
It was in the freaking shade. 109 degrees. I was like, man, that's hot.
Yeah,
I don't even know, man.
And it makes you wonder, you know, with the temperatures and the humidity and things of that nature that humans can't control, why people even settled where they did.
Well,
I could not have
some
survived.
people apparently like it, man.
I could not have survived the desert way back when they were settling it without freaking AC.
You know, it's funny because you're always complaining about how cold you are. Now that it's hot, you're like, it's hot.
No, I'm just...
I mean, come on. The whole freaking winter and spring, you're like, oh god, it's cold, and now it's freaking hot, and it's hot.
We were in the freaking 30s in May. Come on, man.
Always whining, Louie.
Oh, good Lord, no, I'm not.
David says you lived or you existed in Maryland. Yeah. Curious. She's talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me check the comments
goodness.
over here. Gina says the salt is good. I understand for breathing. Haven't tried it yet. I got salt on the counter. If I need it, I'll use it. I'm just saying. I don't even know. Gina says I always said no wonder the crime rate goes up in the summer. All the humidity makes you crazy. Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Definitely.
It does.
It does. Oh man, I don't even know.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, you know. Everything gets kind of amped up too. I mean, everything kind of irritates you. Like, I was trying to watch a show. We were trying to watch a show last night, and the damn cicadas were so freaking loud I couldn't hear the damn TV. Had to close the front door. Like, shut up! And it was like they got louder as soon as I turned on the TV. I'm like, really? It's like they know. I was like, shut up!
I honestly think it's because, number one, the TV is loud because you are deaf. And number two, the intro music sounds like it has freaking cicadas in it to begin with.
It did, you know,
so
after we listened to it.
I think they were trying to communicate.
After I listened to it, I was like, yeah, it does sound like there's some cicadas in the intro. And so apparently they were communicating. I don't know. Freaking bugs talking to my TV. What the hell?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, we hope you're okay, Carrie.
Yes, we do.
Let us know. Let's see. Kelly says, I can't understand why anyone would live in Death Valley.
See, there you go.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe, you know, it's like extreme sports. Extreme living.
Yeah, but the thing is before the invention of cooling systems... People were traveling to these places and settling there. They were building houses there.
You know what? They got tired of going. They're like, well, I guess here's where we are.
No.
Like, oh, it's so nice. And then maybe they came into Death Valley in the winter like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then... Summertime happened and that was it. The end of the settlement right there.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, no.
I don't even know, man. I don't even know. Gina says, oh my gosh, they are so loud.
They are. They are.
See, Marie says, Arizona is the best place to live. Truly, you can go all over the state and get whatever kind of atmosphere you want. Desert, forest, rocks, waterfalls,
yes.
etc. Mm-hmm.
It's
I
all
agree with
here.
You. And we are the best state. And if you disagree... So... Kelly's laughing over there. Yeah, like, we have our own time zone.
We do.
Screw you and your daylight savings.
Oh, that's just annoying.
Just saying.
It really is.
Hey, I'm glad we don't have to mess with it.
Me
That's
too.
one less headache I
I
have
just
to deal
meant
with.
in general for other people, because then you've got to remember. And I have family just like you in other places, and it's like, well, is it before or after you?
Well, you know, see, that doesn't really
time?
bother me as much because they've got such weird schedules anyway. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but my family is more of the strict scheduling, so to speak.
Scheduling. Mama Lois don't have a strict schedule. What are you talking about?
That is true.
She wanders around with that cane looking for heads to whack. I'm just saying. I know how this goes. She don't need scheduling for that.
But the thing is she'll try to remember what the what time zone she's in and whether they're on daylight savings time or standard time. And she's constantly forgetting. And so it's either...
That's the least of her concerns. That's all I'm saying.
That is true. It is true. But when she forgets, she ends up calling at the wrong times.
Oh, yeah. Stuff happens, man. Stuff happens. Gina says, my AC went out driving through Death Valley. I thought I was going to die. Don't you remember my story the other day about that? Renee says, Kelly, it is so they can watch the mysterious moving stones. Oh yeah. She got a good point. In Death Valley, they've got these stones that happen to migrate.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's quite interesting. Very fascinating.
I've been there once, and I was 4.
Oh, jeez.
3, 4 years old.
Apparently, it left an impression.
So it did. Only because I am now immune to fire ant stings because of it.
I hate fire ants. But yeah, I've been through Death Valley tons of times. I'm mostly on the way to California.
Well, I would think either to California or from California.
Well, yeah, both ways.
Yeah.
But either way, it's the gates of hell, which makes perfect sense because California's on the other side. So anyway, Marie says, Gina, that would have been miserable. No AC in Death Valley.
Yeah.
No good, man. Kelly says, yep, my twins and I in a U-Haul, absolutely horrifying.
Oh, no.
And Gina says, oh, it was. And Diana says, spring ahead, fall back.
Yes.
We never remember.
Yeah.
And then you got to remember which relative lives in what state and exactly what time zone they're in and adjust it for the one true time zone. What? Dave says, I think Lois stumbled on proof of global warming. People used to be okay with the weather before cooling systems, and now, even with them, it's too hot. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
I think it's all relative.
Stop it with the relative jokes, man. It's about the humidity.
Stop. Really? Oh, my goodness. It's all about perspective.
There you go.
How's that?
Either way, I'm just saying, you've been complaining all this time about how cold it is, and now it's too hot. We had like a 1 week window where everything was fine, and now it's too hot.
There you go.
I can't take it no more. No more.
But no, I honestly think it's all perspective, and we grow up with creature comforts, and we're not out in it anymore like we were. I could not imagine coming into a place like this where it gets 109 degrees in the freaking shade and saying, oh, this is a good place to live.
I'm just, you know what, it's like, yesterday you were talking about that, when I'm out there, I'm in it, it's hot, yes, but I can deal. It doesn't, it's like, all right, it's just another fact of life, let's do some other thing, let's do it, it doesn't bother me. I mean, yes, it's hot, yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's there, so just deal with it. Stop your whining, Louie.
I'm not whining.
Oh. Yeah,
Really? What? Flick.
Yeah, I don't know.
My goodness.
What? Marie says, so true, the gates of hell, California. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I escaped.
Yeah.
I'm an escapee.
Kelly says, did you see my post on temperature at my place? Humid and miserable. No, I didn't. Not good, man. 109 underneath the LPNN shade tree on Saturday, though. Gina says, I stay inside as much as possible. Yeah, I don't blame you, but, I got stuff to do. Just,
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He does.
Diana
but he's a freak that way.
What? I don't know. What are you talking about, man? It's not that bad. I'm going to die. I'm like, it's hot. It sucks. But
and 90% of the rest of the people would be out there with you dropping like freaking flies.
I don't know what to
You're
tell you,
just
man.
a freaky.
Yeah, well, I am a freak now. I'll give you that. I am a little odd.
I still think it part of it has to do with some of the stuff the Marine Corps injected.
No, I don't know, man. It's hot, but whatever. I don't know. Although when you get the humidity in there, that sets that annoyingness.
It
does.
Like
just a little extra bar of her.
It does, and I think I've mentioned it a few times on the show. When we were visiting Dad in Baltimore, we'd go through the mall in DC, And there was just one summer where it was so freaking bad. And we were trying to go to the different Smithsonian museums. And, of course, we're little, so he's holding our hands.
Trying to as it squeezes out.
Right. And he just gave up at one point and said, you know what, you're too close to me.
Too hot.
Yeah, it's too hot. You're too close. And so we ended up doing a chain, and each one of my sister and I had a finger in a loop, a belt loop.
Like, don't touch me. It's too hot.
Pretty much. And I remember going into I think it was the Museum of oh heck, I can't remember the name of it. It was the one with the dinosaurs.
I think that's the natural history one.
There you go. I was going to say natural sciences, but I knew that was wrong. And I remember going in there thinking, oh, please let it rain. Please let it rain.
Yeah, there's no comfort in that, though, because it's still humid and it's hot rain. So it doesn't...
Well, when we came out, we were in there for a few hours, and when we came out, it was pouring, and it was cold.
Oh, there you go.
It was cold rain.
Now, see, you're complaining about that. I lived there, and I was in the Marine Corps there, and we was out doing PT while that was going on. I'm just saying, running up and down the steps of the Capitol, running around the mall. Oh, yeah. Got a little can of Brasso to go polish the...
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. And David over on YouTube saying, she is a woman, Chris.
Well, that's true.
Meaning,
yeah.
No, yeah.
You can't live with her, and you can't live without him. Yep, pretty much.
Yep,
pretty much.
that would be about it.
Gina says Lois is just stating the facts.
Yes.
Dave says, never thought about the DST until I lived here. Went to Panguitch for the balloons, and it was still daylight at 9 p.m. When does common sense in people say, wait, it's nighttime, maybe it should be dark? I don't know, they're all insane.
They are.
Debbie says Lois needs a pool and not the dog pool. I was going to say, we have one. You just took it away. It's right there. The dog pool's fine. The stupid dog won't use it. Why not?
Really?
You could just go sit in it. You'll be
Oh,
fine.
Lord, no.
What?
No,
Why?
Because it heats up too quickly.
Oh, we can put it in the shade.
No, it still heats up too fast.
That'll be fine.
No.
You need a larger body of water. Is
No,
what you're saying.
yeah, pretty much. We just need to transport my dad and his resort up here.
His resort. Yeah, he does have a nice pool.
He does. And my dad has worked very hard on it to
You know,
make it like his retirement area.
Well, we do actually have a slightly larger pool than that. You know, it's called Lake Powell, right over there. I know we're broke; we can't go out there right now. But it you know, I mean, if we were on the boat, then you could just take a dip.
But the thing is you can't really. It's not conducive to doing laps and stuff.
It
like
is.
that.
You know what? There's 2,000 miles of shoreline. Just swim along. You'll be fine.
Really? Have you seen the freaks out there that drive all over the place? I'd get run over.
Yeah, probably. But then you'd stop complaining because you wouldn't be hot anymore. What?
There's no guarantee about that.
That's true. This is true. Get a phone call. Hey, it's still hot down here. Oh, man. I don't even know, man. I don't even know. Gina says, if I haven't been out in it, deal with it. What? If I have to be out in it, I deal with it. Yeah. It's just the way it is. Shut up. I know, I need a bigger monitor. Diana says, make the redneck pool in the back of the Dodge. I was thinking about that the other day. I do happen to have a large enough tarp. Dwayne says, hey, home safe from Salt Lake City.
Yay!
Glad you made it out of there alive.
Yeah, no kidding.
And Dwayne says, attacked and mauled by brine flies and sea monkeys. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun. Did you actually go swimming in that pit of doom?
Why would you want to?
I don't know. Well, there's people that do. I mean, hey, people swim in the Dead Sea. That's even worse.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, never been.
But apparently the mud is amazing for the skin. Oh. Ask me, man. What?
I have never gotten onto any of those beauty train things.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should invent some Lake Powell sand treatment or something.
There you go.
Yeah. Right, you know, we could have one that's called the Lone Rock, and basically what it is you get a sandblasting machine, and instead of keeping it inside of a container so that it's like you just put it at somebody's face and turn it on.
Oh no!
That'd be like being at Lone Rock in the middle of a windstorm. Which happens every day. So,
but then you'd get fined by MPS for transporting quagga mussels.
Yeah, probably.
what the use is.
I could see that happening, yeah. Like, you have transported quadribuses across state lines. That is a federal offense. I'm like, what?
Oh, my goodness.
Don't even know, man. Dwayne says, yes, you.
Yeah.
Wait, was it excited? Do they actually have sea monkeys in there?
Well, I would
That
think
is the brine
so.
shrimp, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And I would think so since he said he was attacked by them. No thanks.
Doesn't
More
sound
power
like-
to you. But,
You know, that brings to mind all of the warnings and dangers and stuff of, like, you know, like South America. Like, if you're in the jungle, all of the creepy crawlies that are in the water, you know, they can get in you and kill you.
yeah, no thanks.
I'm not talking like the fish kind. I'm talking like the amoebas and the bacterias and the viruses and everything wants to kill you down there.
Well, it's like the desert. Everything, you know.
Yeah, everything is trying to sting you, you know, pinch you, bite you, kill you, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it builds character.
Oh my goodness.
But at least here they're on the macro level, you know. You've got snakes, you've got scorpions, you've got the, you know, down there they have that, and they have all of the nasty little creepy crawlies that try and kill you from the inside.
No thanks.
Yeah, there's that one, I don't even remember what it's called, but they say when you're in the water down there, like if you're out in the bush or whatever, you know.
Isn't that Australia?
Well, whatever. Shush. Anyway, if you're out there doing stuff, you know, and you happen to be in the water, you can't go pee in the water because there's stuff that'll swim up in there.
Why would you want to pee in the water? Anyway?
Well, I'm just saying, that's one of the warnings that they have. Apparently it goes, whoop, and then you're toast.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I don't even know, man.
Nope. So, yeah, that would be, you know, for me it would be, what are they, the scuba suits, wetsuits.
That wouldn't keep it out.
And duct tape. And mop fork.
Yeah, mop for it, yeah. The rest of it, neoprene won't even slow these things down, man.
Oh, that's just wrong.
Just saying. What sort of wetsuit is made out of? See, Marie says, yes.
And
I
Gina,
missed that one.
yeah.
Gina says, I like that there aren't the mosquitoes and ticks and such here. There are, just not nearly as bad.
Yes.
Yeah, that is one of the nice things about being up here. Dwayne says, brine flies can do wonders for your complexion. Is that from stinging? Are they like the no-see-ums or something?
No thanks.
Diana says, danger, Chris Robinson,
Yes.
danger.
Yes.
Marie says, Will. I don't know. But she's probably correcting her other thing.
Yeah. And to answer your question over on YouTube, Carrie, no.
I just saw that.
No.
Naughty. Oh, man. Getting bad.
No. But one of the things I had, going back to the whole sandblasting thing.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I have wanted to do because, you know, life, is figure out a way to sandblast and chisel out the shape of body I want.
Oh.
Without killing myself.
Well, you know, you need a sonic screwdriver to do that.
Well, yeah. So get on that. Chop, chop. And where's my transporter?
I'm working on it. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. I don't know. But yeah, that is one of the things we'd like to do is get on the lake so we can cool off a little bit. Fortunately, it's not in the budget currently.
No. Not
Still
yet.
siphoning gas out of the tanks of the boat, so. What?
You waited until I was trying to get a drink.
It's not like you were siphoning
I
it.
remember that taste, though.
Yeah, I know. This guy said, hey, give me a kiss. And she's like, get it away.
Yep.
Almost had her.
Almost. Carrie says over on YouTube, I used to watch Monsters Inside Me. I never heard of that show.
Now every episode is flashing through my mind.
Uh-oh.
I don't even want to know, man. You remember that movie, Fantastic Voyage?
Long time
don't.
ago.
I was going to say there was that and there was Inner Space. But I remember as a kid watching Fantastic Voyage, Dad, and man, that thing used to give me nightmares because I was thinking, like, what if there's a little submarine with crazy people inside of me? And what if they're, like, cutting up stuff? That's all I remember, and it was creepy. And then Inner Space was funny. I loved Inner Space. That was amazing, and it kind of took my fear away from Fantastic Voyage. But the Fantastic Voyage used to creep me out.
And what finally took your fear away of jackalopes?
Dad. I thought jackalopes were real way into my teens, man. I found out they weren't. I was so pissed. Oh, tell you what. I had a postcard with one of those on there, and I'm like, see, it's real. Young and naive, man. Young and naive. Not so anymore. Builds character, though. Builds character.
That was amazing.
Gary says, I watched a marathon of Mad TV last night. Totally was thinking of y'all.
Oh, no.
Diana says, change to Chris on purpose. What?
I don't know.
Dwayne says, Carol Ann has a sonic screwdriver. Nice.
That is really cool.
There we go.
Is it functional?
Yeah, she wants to be able to use it for
yes,
real.
please.
I don't know. Diana says, loved FV. Oh, fantastic voyage. Yeah. Dave says, kind of surprised you read Carrie's comment. That was borderline, not PG-13. Which one?
No, the Monsters Inside Me is actually a TV show.
Oh,
yeah, that's why I said I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it, so. Kelly says, flies and no seums here in Concho, but flies are the worst. Yep. Cows, horses, and other livestock are around here. Yeah, those things bite like crazy. You, I don't know what it is about you. You attract, like, anything that bites or stings within, like, a 10-mile radius.
I know.
And you're like, oh, something bit me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where? And you're like, right there. No, there's nothing there. I think it's psychosomatic.
No, it is not psychosomatic.
I think you think things are biting you, therefore you feel them biting you.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
And Carrie says Monsters Inside Me is all about parasites.
Ew. Oh, ew. Oh. Yeah. Let's see. Dwight says, hey, Rachel Welch was in that submarine. I don't care, man. When I was a kid, that thing creeped me out. Gina says, Chris, I thought jackalopes were real for a long time as well. Yeah, and my dad had me convinced, man. Those things were real until I was in my teens. It was... And that was, like, when I, like, found out for sure, because I was like, no, they're just trying to mess with me, that it's not real. It took me a long time, and then I found out, no, I was like, really?
This would explain some trust issues. You have daddy issues instead of mommy issues.
It's the jackalopes, man. I thought they were going to get me.
Oh, that's amazing.
So speaking of Lake Powell and hopefully wanting to get out there at some point in the maybe future.
What do you mean hopefully wanting to? We are wanting to.
We'll get there. I gotta drain the rest of the gas out and put it in the truck.
Oh, no.
But we have something here that I have been meaning to talk about for a while. What?
Oh!
Yeah. So
like we do?
We got this like a month ago. And then, let me show you guys it. Lake Powell. Check that out.
Yeah, there's
a hole in it. Yeah, I see
yeah.
that. The hole is it's Horseshoe Bend. Horseshoe Bend's got a hole in it. It's probably the what?
Horseshoe Bend has a hole in it.
And look, there's Horseshoe Bend behind us, so that's even weirder.
Oh,
something fishy going on here.
Oh.
Hold on, let me catch up on the comments over here. Gina says, no seums are real.
Yes, they are.
No seums are nasty. Dwayne says, hey, they're real. Lost a leg to one. Yeah, you did. And an eye, you turd. Just saying.
Okay, I gotta hear the story.
There isn't the story, man. He lost a leg, apparently.
Okay.
Shiver me timbers.
I gotta hear this story,
Anyway,
Dad.
back to this thing. So this is Lake Powellopoly, which is Monopoly for Lake Powell. And there's, like I said, I got this a while back, and I was like, oh, that looks fun. And I thought, maybe some of our fans out there would like it. And, especially people that, aren't necessarily from the area, or even people that are from the area, because it's kind of funny.
It is.
And they got a picture of the board here on the back. I haven't actually opened this thing, as you can see. It's still in its shrink wrap. Let's see. Carryover on YouTube says, stories of mysterious illnesses that perplex doctors and turn out to be parasites. Yeah, that's just dick. Yeah. And David says, what? Jackalopes are not real? I know.
And Dawn over on Facebook says, good morning from New Mexico. Good morning.
She's having no seeing problems. I know that for a fact. Gina says it has RD's drive-in on it, doesn't it? I haven't seen that yet.
Well, if you turn it around, it shows the whole board.
Yeah, it does. We have, let's see, so I'm going to go ahead and read we've got the different stuff on here. We've got the Glen Canyon Dam, Defiance House and Artie's Drive-In. Okay, so that's that's for the boardwalk and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That replaces the boardwalk area?
That's the 3 for the boardwalk. So they've got some canyons.
No, it's not.
What?
The boardwalk area would be right here. Where it's
is that start? I thought that was start.
Oh my goodness.
Shush. Oh, so Lake Powell and the Colorado River. Sorry, look, it looks like that would be start, and they messed it up. So it's actually over here.
No, that's the equivalent of free parking.
It says just cruising by, slow, no wake, idle for 3 turns. Oh, that's funny. And then there's another one, float to the no wake zone. That's the go to jail, I'm guessing. That's pretty funny.
Oh my goodness.
They got all kinds of fun stuff on there.
They do.
Let's see, they've got contingency, boat rentals, you have to pay $200. That's actually a lot more than that. So, Antelope Point, Bullfrog Ferry. They've got one with it says Big Fun. Let's see. Oh, there's Rainbow Bridge, Horseshoe Bend, and Grand Staircase Escalante. That's fun. Navajo Nation, Dinosaur National Monument, John Wesley Powell Museum. Hey, they got the museum in there.
Nice.
Antelope Canyon. Vermilion Cliffs, Coyote Buttes, Toadstool Hoodoos. Nice. Free camping. There's very few. Oh, here we go. We got Page, Dangling Rope Marina, and Halls Crossing.
Oh, how much is Page worth?
$190. Oh, that's great. So, should we open this thing? Are you guys interested in seeing what's on this thing? Let's see. Let me go over here. Let's see. Diana says Artie's is more Baltic
Avenue.
And Kelly says, good God, Chris is going to get lost in the board game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's see. Carrie says, is the windy on there? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But I'm going to go ahead and crack it open and let's take a look here.
Oh my.
What?
The shrink wrap. It must be Monday morning. He's having issues with shrink wrap.
Oh, not I cut it and pulled it off. Anyway, Jiminy Crickets. He's so mean today. So there we go. We got it open here. Let's see what we got.
Oh my goodness.
What we got here?
Oh, and Kelly is laughing. Gina says the windy should be.
I don't know. I'll have to take a look. So, I got our little bundle of fake money, just like the stuff that's in your wallet. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, okay. Here, you can open that one.
Why, thank you. The property cards.
So it's just supposed to be like Monopoly, but these are like really chintzy pieces.
Well, it's a knockoff.
Well, that's true.
This was not commissioned by Milton Bradley.
Yeah, no. Let's see what we got for pieces. Those are always fun. I like the pieces. What do we got for pieces here? We've got some... oh, look, there's Rainbow Bridge. Can you guys see that? It's Rainbow Bridge.
That's really cool.
That is hilarious. So you can be Rainbow Bridge. Let's see. Oh, there's a hiking shoe. So similar, but it's got the little clogs. I don't know if you got... Yeah, I probably can't see that. Let's see. What the heck is that? Whoa. That's freaky looking. Looks like Mick Jagger's smile.
Oh, good God, it
Minus
does.
the tongue. Yeah, that doesn't show up either. Let's see, we've got, looks like a mountain bike. Yeah, there you go, a little tiny mountain bike. Let's see, oh, there's a coyote howling. That's kind of neat. That's actually kind of cool, I like that. And then there is a heart.
My goodness.
Heart.
There's not a boat or anything?
No, that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, you figured there'd be a boat. Let's see. Yeah, Lake Powellopoly, right?
Yeah.
Kelly's laughing.
I told you.
Gina says, you've already read these.
And Kelly is saying, yes, the windy's got to be there. It's not.
Yeah, don't think so. Dwayne says, where's Haydoot? Must be near go to jail. Yeah, right? I know. Diana says, is there a houseboat game piece? No boats.
I was thinking houseboat.
And Dwayne says, is there a Jeep? I know. They don't have, what the heck, man? There's basic stuff missing. So I'm going to go ahead and open the board up here. Oh, there's something in here. Oh, you want to grab that?
Oh,
it's got the rules. Okay. So here we go. We're opening up the board there. There we go. Oh, look. All the right colored stuff is...
That's funny.
So let's see. What do we have? Yeah. What do we have? I'll go ahead and go through. I see Page, Dangling Rope Marina, Halls Crossing, Labyrinth Canyon, Lone Rock Beach, Hell's Backbone, Life Buoy, Hole in the Rock, Glen Canyon Dam, Defiance House, Contingency, Ardy's Drive-In, Last Chance Canyon, Boat Rentals, Antelope Point, Bullfrog Ferry, Lake Powell. They got a security deposit. That's funny. Let's see. Lake Powell, Colorado River, Rainbow Bridge, Horseshoe Bend, Grand Staircase National Monument, Navajo Nation, Sunscreen Dinosaur National Monument, John Wesley Powell Museum, Antelope Canyon, Vermilion Cliffs, Coyote Buttes, Toadstool Hoodoos. So that's all of those. Hoodoos.
And, yeah, Gina and Kelly are saying boo that they don't have the Windy in here.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, because there's obviously famous landmarks.
There are, and
that's really
we don't know who commissioned this.
Yeah, I don't know. But
we'll have to look into that.
Crap, but I'm just saying it's like really badly made. It's already got stuff coming out. Look, this whole thing is already.
It's already ripping.
Yeah.
Well, you're also folding it backward.
No, I'm not. You shush, woman.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it actually folds.
Oh,
so
never mind.
Anyway,
and, Dave is over on YouTube. He's saying, still awaiting the people who are quote unquote offended at the cost of rent for certain places compared to others.
Oh,
on the board game.
Yeah, I know. There's a bunch of stuff that they could have put on there. That they didn't. There's a lot of potential here, and they kind of. I don't know. I feel a little cheated.
Yeah, so do I.
I got it back here.
Oh, that's a good thing. Let's see. So, Dawn says, I would write the company and tell them they forgot the boat.
Yeah, there's no boats, there's no Jeeps. I'm like, I mean, I guess you can't please everyone, but come on, man. Yeah. It's called Lake Powell. Where's the fucking boat? What? I mean, the beach.
Woo!
Sorry. What? Warning, the show is
wow!
Beep. Beep.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know, so that is interesting.
Well, the thing is why the heart? Why the
heart and the lips?
Freaky
smile, man. That's kind of weird. It's like a Jagger thing, but no tongue.
It just, I just no. It just that is a very creepy piece. Mm-hmm. It just
yeah, it's like
no.
Almost like it's like the Cheshire Cat, but no, it's cool.
Yeah, pretty much. And Dave has an emoji over on YouTube, and we can't see it.
Yeah, I can't see the emoji. Not coming through. Let's see.
No, Dwayne, there isn't a Jeep.
Everyone's going boo, boo.
Pretty much.
All right.
Scroll down.
Did you haven't read all that?
Gina says the Windy is a local landmark. Yes, it is.
And it's closing.
Yeah. And Kelly says whoever made that game needs a slap upside the head.
Yeah, they're just trying to capitalize on Lake Powell. I guess they just didn't really quite, get the.
Yeah, no,
and Gina says bleep. Yeah, bleep.
Yeah.
And Kelly says, "Oh my God." Yeah, I'm sorry.
And Gina says weirdness. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. That's yeah. But anyway, so what?
Okay. Yep. No. Yeah. Carrie's comment.
Carrie's got some new stuff going on over there, but that's not. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're not going to read that. We're having fun. At least we were trying to. And then that board game is sort of disappointing.
Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more, but it is cool because it's for Lake Powell. It's Lake Powellopoly.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yeah. I'm disappointed at some of the pieces, and
well, it's like they tried to capitalize on it, but they just didn't put enough effort into it. Oh wait, just like the rest of Page. It's I'm not kidding, man. That's what a page is. They're like just enough effort to actually live and not die, but that's it. I mean, there's not enough effort that goes on. It's a thing. What?
I just.
Kelly's laughing. Kelly says, "Coffee out the nose time." Which one?
Oh,
was it for the beep?
Probably.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep. I am very disappointed in that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, because there's so much potential that could be done. The airport's not even on there.
No, it's not.
City Hall.
Right.
We've got Public Works, for crying out loud. They had that on the original one.
I just. Maybe because it was done by a larger company, Public Works is...
No, it's not done by a larger company. I looked it up.
No, I meant the original.
Oh, okay.
Public Works is sort of copyrighted or trademarked.
Yeah, but you could have been our Public Works.
Well,
you
yeah,
could
that
have put
is
it
true.
in there as PUE.
That is true.
I'm just saying. I mean, if you're going to make it specific to the region, at least try.
And Kelly over on Facebook saying, faux show.
Oh, show! Yeah, I don't know, man. Let's see. What?
Oh.
I'm not touching that one. YouTube's gone off the hook. Kelly says, yep, the bleep awesomeness. See, at least somebody enjoys my slip-ups.
Gina.
What? Oh, Gina says, it is that way here. Everyone wants things done, but they want everyone else to do it.
Yeah, pretty
Exactly.
much.
You know, because I actually looked up where this stuff comes from, and you can actually get your own custom.
That's why I'm
Opoly board
wondering
made.
who commissioned it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because they got it at Walmart, which doesn't really take that much effort.
And it just, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's a little odd, but you think they would have put a little more effort in, but obviously they're from Page, so just saying. You can tell by the lack of attention to detail. Just saying, what's with the heart and the lips, man? Come on. Come on.
Why isn't there a freaking houseboat?
A houseboat or a speedboat or
A boat?
a paddle board? I mean, come on, man.
Or?
Yeah, and they do have Rainbow Bridge. That's something.
They do.
But
some of the landmarks they put in there, it's like, aren't necessarily landmarks.
yeah, well, I don't know. It's like, I'm not doing it anyway. Dave is sleeping over there, I guess.
Yep.
Did we bore you, Dave?
And Carrie says, amen, Gina.
Gina says, how much is it? It's $20.
Yeah.
$20.
$20.
$20.
I just...
I wanted to get it because, we're LPNN and we live in Lake Powell and Page.
We live in Lake Powell?
Yes.
Have we...
Silencio, por favor. That messing is mi mojo. Anyway, we live in the area, and so we figured, hey, let's check it out. There might be other people that don't live in the area that are interested. If you would like one of these games that is half-assed done, let me know. Maybe we will ship some out. Maybe we'll do some kind of raffle or something to help raise funds so I can go on the lake.
Oh, no.
Or pay the mortgage. Depends on the day.
And Gina's saying Jeep, four-wheeler. Yeah, I mean,
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, and they got a heart and lips. I mean, what the...
No.
I don't know, man. I don't even know. Let's see. Gina said... Oh, yeah. Okay. And Kelly says, even... Not saying that.
You are correct, Kelly. You are correct.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't
know. This one is... Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It's just not quite what I was hoping or expecting.
Right.
It's kind of...
Yeah. It sort of fizzled.
It's more kind of a novelty thing. It cost way too freaking much because after opening it and the board already hit, it's like, really?
You need to read Diana's.
Oh, hold on. Let me get over here. What do I have over here? Diana says, it's from a small company called Late for the Sky out of Cincinnati.
Yes.
I know.
We did look that up, and actually what they do is they take personal orders for them.
Yeah, so somebody made a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And
it's a good idea. It's just like...
I don't think they came up with the idea. I think somebody
somebody commissioned it. Yeah.
In the area came up with the idea.
Definitely. They just didn't quite get the...
No.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
It doesn't have enough soul in it, man.
No. Like Dan Plaza should be in there.
Yeah. I'm going to say, it's Lake Powell, you might as well have this down. Come on.
Yeah.
Could have been a little more effort, that's all I'm saying. But, I say that about a lot of Page stuff. You're always like, why does this suck? Like, because Page. I mean, come on. You think you'd be used to it by now. Come on, Lois, come on.
No, I refuse to.
So, just like everything else that comes out of this place. What? Oh. Come on, it's gonna go. She's gonna blow. Oh wait, that sounds exciting. You want to do it in the board game? You blow coffee out your nose, man. Come on. There she blows. Darn, that was a close one, man. You guys saw that. She was that close.
Oh my goodness.
I was excited.
Wow.
Kelly says, Steven says, you can see through the box on the side, made solid on the other, like magic. Yes, it's got, so apparently they've stolen some of our active camouflage technology.
That may be where some of the money went from the pieces to the active camouflage.
They cut corners so they can make it work just for us. Oh, look at that. It's personalized. So if somebody would like a signed copy of one of these, maybe we'll do some kind of raffle. What do you guys think?
I like that idea.
Yeah, I got a few of these floating around.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Man, Kelly says, I'm feeling very naughty.
These.
Warning, this show is for entertainment purposes only. Oh my. Oh my.
Oh boy. So, one thing I wanted to talk about today that we're not going to have time to talk about, and hopefully Dad is watching on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Is, and Mama Lois was talking about this yesterday. Was foods that our parents have messed us up with.
Okay.
Because we were talking yesterday, and she was mentioning that she talked about you this weekend and macaroni and cheese.
Although Renee makes some killer mac and cheese.
Yes, she does. She does.
So there are exceptions, but not for the most part.
So yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about today. But you,
sorry, I got sidetracked. Let's see. Dave says time to go commission Lake Powellopoly, the locals version. Yeah,
there we are.
Our Lake Powellopoly, for real.
For real. Oh no!
Just saying, it could totally be done, and I agree with you. I think because this is BS. Let's see. Kelly says beep. Oh, did I bleep again?
I don't remember bleeping.
So. I think I'm good. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't remember us bleeping this time.
I don't know,
but maybe we did.
I don't know. It could happen. Either way, guys, that's about all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for liking, commenting, and sharing on all of these videos. We really do appreciate it. What?
And you don't know about this, but Wednesday we will have a surprise for our viewers Wednesday during the show.
Okay.
He doesn't know.
All right.
So definitely tune in on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm going to have to find out what this is all about. Okay. Thanks, guys, for being here. Let me know in the comments below if you guys are interested in doing some kind of raffle. I've got 4 of these things for you guys out there. Yes, we have made fun of it, and it's kind of, quality-wise, but either way, it's Lake Powellopoly, and
yes,
we've already done it, and you'll be helping the cause. Let me know what you guys want to do. Oh, let me check the comments one more last time before.
Oh, Kelly is saying, no, she's bleeping.
Oh.
Yeah, and Renee's going, huh?
I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, time for some bloopers. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.